Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Mr. Neil Gonsalves, Mr. Keeran Eshwarlall, Mr. Sipiram Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandalwal, distinguished guests and online viewers, Namaskar and welcome to the seventh episode of this melodious series Antarstan or Inner Tone, a series of interactions between two guest artists about their experiences of synchronization of their inner tones or internal rhythms with the expectations of performances and programs. Indeed, today in our midst, we have two very dynamic and talented musicians based in Durban, South Africa, and that is musician Mr. Neil Gonsalves and Mr. Keeran Eshwarlall, a musician and a singer from Durban. So today, please welcome Kiranji and Neilji for their interaction on the seventh episode of Antarstan. Namaste and welcome Kiranji and Neilji.
Namaste. Thank you very much for having me.
Namaste.
Ooh, Neil, long time.
Hi, Keeran. How are you?
Hey, it's good to see you. Really good to see you after almost 30 years. I don't think our folks there at the Consul General know this, but there's always some sort of divine intervention whenever things has to happen between musicians. And for those at the Consul General office, Piyush ji and Dr. Yogi ji and Shrishti, I have that I had the pleasure of a very short interaction in the same band with Neil almost 30 years ago. The band was called Vivace. It was a Western rock band, something totally out of my elements, but it was such a rewarding experience, although that band didn't last too long. It was an experimental thing that we had put together at the time. And I was very much a junior getting into music at the time. And Neil, by that time, was a superstar. His performances, I remember Neil from school days. And I think for the town of Verulam, definitely has produced a son of the soil that is a legend in his own lifetime. So it's a pleasure to be interacting with Neil after almost 30 years. Surprisingly, we lived in the same town. We grew up in the same town, but for the last 30 years at least, we haven't seen each other or interacted. So it's great, and I must thank the Consulate General and Almighty actually for bringing this jodi together. So great to see you, Neil.
Yeah, great to see you as well, Keeran, and thanks for those very kind words. It's Verulam was where we both grew up. I mean, school days and kind of finding our way in life and in music. And and we both kind of traveled quite a long road to where we find ourselves now. And like you say, thank you so much to the Indian Consul General for kind of reconnecting us all these years later. I have a question to ask you, which is about this concept of inner tone. What's your take on this?
Innately musicians, well, I think every single human being is born musical. So whether you can sing or can't sing, or clap to a beat or can't clap to a beat, there's some sort of musicality in the gene pool of every single human being. Even animals have a sense of rhythm. If you look at ants, they know how to walk in line, but no one taught them to walk in single file. If you look at troops of monkeys, when they do what they do, they all do it in sync with each other. So that kind of rhythmic pattern, that kind of it's in all species. So I think that instilled, I think, put in. So when it comes to the inner tone, we all of tune. Some people sing terribly out of tune. Some people sing very well. So in terms of inner tone, I think it's basically an expression of your soul. If you are able to bring out that piece that you're singing, that song, or whether it's poetry or whatever it is, I think inner tone is a very apt way of describing what your soul is like on the inside, by the way you express it on the outside. So that's my take on what an inner tone is. What do you think it would be in your opinion, Neil?
Well, I think that what you said pretty much, sums up the way I feel about it as well. You use the word innate, and I feel like when something is innate, we don't really give it too much thought. Often we just kind of take it for granted. It's just kind of a natural thing. It's like we don't really think too much about how to walk, for example, because we just walk. And I think, I'm in agreement with you also about the idea that all humans and all species have some sense of internal rhythm, and that all people have this sense of an inner tone, because I think we as musicians find expression for that in music. But they say it takes two to tango. So it's only because people can listen and appreciate what it is that we do that this music is meaningful. Meaningful in sound. But what I'm saying is that it's the inner tone of every human being that ultimately is what makes them recognize and connect with what it is that we do. So music becomes a language, and my inner tone, and someone hypothetically in my audience, or someone that's listening to me play, is connecting to what I do on a level that goes beyond simply hearing, goes beyond simply listening, goes beyond simply experiencing. You notice that, often at the end of a concert, for example, the whole mood, the feeling in the room after a great concert can be ecstatic. And that's not simply the work of the musicians. That's also because the people have something inside them that's responding to the music. And for me, that has to do with the idea of inner tone. And I think it's such a valuable thing for us as human beings, because it's also something that guides us. I think it's for us as musicians, it's something that we nurture through our practice of music. So we have a deep connection with this idea of connecting through music. And I think music is not the only way to connect to this thing. Other people that have some kind of practice where they really focus on this kind of thing, it could be a spiritual practice, it could be something that they do physically. It's something that helps us in our day-to-day life. So I think it's actually a fundamental part of human beings, but I think that sometimes we can become disconnected from it. And when we become disconnected from it is when life becomes hard, when we sometimes overthink things and have this kind of sense of disconnection.
That's true. I think also the same applies to internal rhythm, because there are, there's no law book that states you need to be civilized or come from a civilized society or civilized species in order to have rhythm. Rhythm, I think the inner tone and rhythm are intertwined, in that one can't exist without the other. Having said that, we know that there are some singers that can sing beautifully but don't have a sense of timing. We know that there are some singers that have a good sense of timing but have horrible tune, pitch, and they can't pitch. Mind you, there are some artists, like I've been giving this some thought. There are some artists that have made a success. Maybe it was a one-hit wonder. But Neil, you remember a singer called Edie Brickell?
Yes.
She was married to Rick Astley, I think, at one time. But
Okay.
Edie Brickell doesn't actually pitch. You know, she doesn't really pitch. But you know, she made a success of that. What I Am Is What I Am song. I think in doing so, the fact that she had inner rhythm, her internal rhythm covered for the fact that she didn't have much of an outer tone, put it that way, you know. But in her head, her inner tone is what was connecting, making the audience connect with her. So I think the two things will definitely go hand in hand. And I still believe that one can't exist without the other. But you know, this leads me to another question that maybe I could ask you is, and you know, I'd like to also have the opportunity to answer the same kind of question. Is how would you get this in a musical practice or performance?
Well, you know, I mean, I can only kind of reflect on my own experience. And I have to say that, you know, when I started learning music, my focus was not really inwards. It was more about trying to figure things out musically, kind of understand, you know, the theory of music. And it was just, you know, listening to other people, the kind of environmental factors, the culture of the music, the tradition of the music, the style of the music, you know, all of the kind of technical aspects of playing the instrument and so on. You know, it's like a mountain of information. So in the beginning, there's a lot of, I guess in a way, it's almost the scientific and mathematical aspects of music that consumes one, especially as a young person that's trying to prove yourself. But at some point in my own kind of journey, I kind of started to ask myself the question, well, what else is there to this thing? So now I can play, now I can hear music much better. I can play with other people much better. I have a successful career and, you know, recording music and all of the kind of dreams and aspirations I had as a young person. Okay, so now I have these things, but what else is there? And so I've kind of figured out that that I'm on a journey, that I'm on a path, and that the thing that has guided me down this path is something actually that's internal, that it is a personal journey, and my music is meaningful to me in a way that that actually kind of nurtures and and kind of provides nourishment for my soul. It also kind of helps me to connect to myself and helps me to connect to the people around me. So in terms of how it kind of plays out in music, I think it's just it just deepens the connection to the sound. Yes, one can say, okay, well, a minor chord is a minor chord, major chord is a major chord, you know, this scale is this scale, and so on. There's all of this kind of stuff. But as a young person, you absorb it as sound, you absorb it as frequency, as energy, and so on. But now, when I hear these things, there's a different connection with all of these things. Like I said, the connection is deeper, and I think it again has to do with this idea of inner tone, internal rhythm. I think it's also to do with vibration and energy, and one becoming much more sensitized to the sound, but also kind of knowing oneself better. You know, so I think the music helps, like I say, to deepen the connection to yourself. So the music, you know, is not simply entertainment. It's not simply sound. It's not simply a beat. There is something more meaningful about the music.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way, the music remains the music. This thing that has changed is me, you know, living my life, going down my path. And so that's the thing, is that it's just become more meaningful to me.
That's great. You know, touching on what you picked up there, agree with you 100%. And how I would get this in musical practice, I don't think inner tone and inner rhythm is something that we really exhibit in practice. Because you know, often when we practice alone. When we're practicing, you know, in a room and we're just by ourselves, or if it is with a group, stuff like that, we are conscious of the fact that there's no audience, and we're practicing, you know, among ourselves and our friends, or maybe alone. So I don't think there's too much of that exhibiting of the inner tone and internal rhythm when we are practicing. Although it's a tool of the trade, we have to adhere to this. I think more than anything else, how do we get this in the musical performance should be the question, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's an assimilation of energies. It's the audience energy connecting with yours, and I think it's your performance, whatever you give off, is what the audience will then identify with. So I think that more than anything else, it's the performance. So it's the I have a saying, it's on my WhatsApp status permanently, that music is food for your soul. So as soon as you perform, the nice thing about music is that the more you perform, is the more you are giving away. You know, but in as much as you are giving away, there's so much more you're getting back from the reaction of the audience and stuff like that. So you will agree with me that we often, when we're in live performance, we feed off the energy of the audience. You know, and that's what makes our performance either successful or not. You know.
Yeah. So carrying on from that, so did you feel that you are also an instrument to feel and experience or invoke this inner tone from within?
You know, when I was learning music, the common denominator that I found from all the teachers that I've encountered and all the teaching styles that I've seen and all of the classes that I've attended and my observations is that if you are learning to sing, your vocal coach will always tell you that your voice, your vocal cords is your instrument, right? And if you're learning an instrument, whether it's like in Indian classical music, we learn harmonium, sitar, tabla, whatever it is, the gurus will always say to you that your instrument is an extension of your hand. You know, so as such, if you left the instrument by itself, it's not going to play for the audience. You know, so you have to physically make the sound. You have to play it, strike it, or do whatever in order to be able to get the sound to come out. So the only way it can make a sound is if you apply whatever needs to be applied. So whether it's playing a piano or playing drums or guitar or whatever it is, the instrument sat there, the audience wouldn't know anything about it. But the moment you pick it up, whatever's inside you is what now becomes an extension. Your instrument then becomes an extension of your inner self. So I think, yes, to answer the question, the inner tone does give you a sense of assimilation and energy with it. And of course, like I said, you know, when you feed off the energy of the audience, then when the two energies combine is when we have a recipe for a very successful performance.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I've also kind of have some ideas about this idea of being an instrument yourself. This kind of sense of guidance, that one is simply a vessel for energy that's coming through you. So, you know, again, when I was a young musician, I mean, this was quite a mystical kind of thing for me. I mean, I used to watch my teachers, you know, people who had been playing music for a long time, who had been in the tradition for a long time, and And I was amazed at how much they could hear. They could already predict in an improvisation kind of setting, where things were going. They just seem to be able to make so many musical decisions, but in such quick time. To me, it was a complete mystery. So one of the things that I've kind of developed into over the years is a composer. And so as a composer, it's sometimes the case that the beginning of a composition is inspired by something external. So it could be something that I see, it could be something that I hear, it could be a conversation I have, it could be something I see in the news or on social media, it could be from playing my instrument. But then there's this process of developing the composition. And then you ask yourself, well, what is guiding this process? Because as I'm composing, I'm making all these decisions. And one of the things that I find over time is that decisions are made easier and easier. Actually, in a way, they don't feel like decisions. I can hear the music. I'm simply following my ear. I'm kind of just going with the flow. So that's a popular phrase, to go with the flow. But what does going with the flow mean?
Absolutely.
In terms of music, in terms of playing music, in terms of composing music? Because it means that if you're going with the flow is coming from somewhere. It's not coming from me, it's coming from somewhere and coming through me. And so this manifests as music. So this is something, like I say, that I feel much more connected to now. And this is how I kind of think of myself as a vessel, as being an instrument. So that's kind of my little take on that.
Do you feel that your performance is not done by you only, but something that's greater and bigger than you, that is supporting you as a power of energy whenever you are singing or playing an instrument? So basically, do you feel that sometimes you're just merely a medium by which the music is flowing?
I do have that. I do have that experience. I don't want to kind of make what I do sound like something that's extra special or beyond the reach or particularly mystical or magical. But I have moments, and sometimes they are rare, where sometimes, and you never know when it's going to happen. Sometimes it could be a performance where you've had very little rehearsal. Maybe you have slept the night before, maybe the sound is not great, maybe there's not a great audience or people are making noise or whatever, but sometimes things just come together. You just synchronize with the musicians in such a almost effortless way. And then yes, it feels like this was something that was not of my making, not of our making.
Yeah.
This did not come
Divine
from
intervention.
But like I say, if I do 30 or 40 concerts in a year, I'll be lucky to experience that maybe once or twice in a year. So it's not something that is inherent, I think, in what we do. Because music, it happens in any environment, in any kind of setting, and there's all kinds of forces, sometimes commercial forces and all of these things that drive the music, that drive a performance. But like I say, every now and then, this kind of magic happens. And to be honest, that experience is the main reason why I became a musician.
That's awesome. If I were to give my take on the same, music, especially in the genre that I'm in, Hindustani music, is very much connected to spirituality. So a lot of what we do as in this genre of music has a base in scriptural, in scriptural text. So in essence, Hindustani classical music was something that was ordained by the gods, well, all music forms for that matter. But from a Hindustani classical music point of view, it's everything that is taught with a religious base. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say a religious base, but a spiritual base, right? Just that obviously emanating from India, it would then the religious base or the spiritual base will draw its medium from the scriptures. So when they teach a rag, for example, a rag will have something to do with an extract from like the Bhagavad Gita or the Ramayana or whatever it is, right? So some sort of spiritual script. So the more seasoned you become and the more experience that you get, the more you progress and you reach a stage where you get a title, where you move from being a student to a teacher to a guru. There's a difference, because if you're a student, you're still learning. If you're a teacher, you have now learned enough to be able to teach. And to a guru is where you are now the grand master of what you do. And then that guru will then attain a title called Pandit. Pandit means one with the highest knowledge in that field, right? So what happens is they reach that only because they're able to bring out a certain amount of inner spirituality connected with the audience's energy. And that aspect of performance is called, where the two energies combine and merge and form this beautiful cloud, invisible cloud. But that's called bhav in classical music, or in the Hindustani music. So there is this, and that this bhav is an ecstatic energy between audience and the performer. So sometimes, yes, because I'm also I'm involved in the singing of religious songs, bhajans, and kirtans, I experience this bhav a lot more, in my performances. So there is that's where I feel that the divine is now performing through me, or whatever it is that I'm trying to invoke or incite. It's coming out well enough for me. And then, when you have everybody in the audience singing and clapping with you, you basically, they've now become part of your performance. So that bhav is very important to be able to get. And I must admit that I've experienced it a number of times, and it's a great feeling. That's also one of the reasons why I remain a musician and still want to be a musician the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, that's I must say you're very privileged to have that kind of community in which to perform, because I think that really helps the process. I mean, I'm a musician that plays lots of different kinds of music, but I'm also sometimes playing for audiences that are completely where the kind of music I'm playing is completely foreign to them. So so sometimes it feels like when I'm playing music, I'm going to war, because I'm coming from one angle and the audience is running off in the other direction. And there is some pleasure, to be honest, to be derived from that as a musician, because then you are trying to win. You're trying to win them over. You're trying to get them to listen. I mean, it's a very challenging thing to do when you, because I think that as musicians we need people's ears. We can't just play into a vacuum. So when you've got 100 people in the room and they're all making a noise, you're trying to find at least one person. Like if they just get one person to just give me a look, give me a smile, give me some sense that you just listening a little bit. And if I can just find that one person, the gig becomes easy. It doesn't matter how much noise, because I feel like I've earned some kind of victory. Of course. But anyway, probably going off topic now.
No, but it's a good point you mentioned there, Neil, because I've had the good fortune of learning music from one of India's topmost artists in the religious field, and he is Padma Shri Anup Jalota. And I remember that when I went to him and I said, teach me. And he asked me, what do you want to learn? I said, well, I want to learn to sing like you and play like you. And he just shook his head and said, no. And I just thought to myself, here I am in India. I've traveled all this way to come to this man who I absolutely adore and worship. And I am here now in his house. And he just shook his head and said, no, I will not teach you to sing like me and play like me. So I said, okay, then I shall take your leave and go. Yes, he says to me, sit down. I never say, you can leave yet. So I asked him, what happens now? And he says, no, look. He says, you see, this is where I am as Jan Samrat, which is a title that was given to Emperor Okajans. And everybody knows who I am. So everybody already knows who I am because of what I do, right? If you said to me, you want to sing better than me, and you want to play better than me, I'll teach you. He says, because this is where I am now. The bar is set. I've already done everything up to here. So if you supersede that, right, you aim higher. Although I set the bar, you aim higher. If you fall, you'll end up where I am. And that's very, very profound. For me, it was the real eye opener, because here's somebody who's one of the grand masters, basically, who's giving me an opportunity to be able to be on par with him. Just that I was 20 years behind, and he says, if you carry on working the way I've worked, you'll surpass what I've done, which is what my dream for a student would be, is for them to end up being better than me. So once I've left this earth, it's your name they will remember, which is a great philosophy, So I don't think we should ignore these kind of blessings. Like you said, you wait for that one person in the audience to give you a little bit of attention, and you know that somebody there is appreciating it, even if it's for a second. So when I said to him how, like in India, you have this guru shishya thing, which is a guru teacher and a student relationship, and whenever you take knowledge from the guru, you have to give some sort of dakshina, which is a gift or an amount of money, like you pay for lessons, that kind of thing. And I said to him, so what dakshina can I give you? His answer was what kept me in this industry. He said, you've traveled 10,000 miles. You are here in my house. Yes, I will teach you because you've now changed your vision. You want to be better than me. I will teach you. No problem. But the day I walk into your show and I have one member of the audience clap for you because of your performance, only one person, if I see them clap for you, my job as a teacher is done. So I see where you're coming from when you say, like, in a rowdy room, people are not connecting with you. As musicians, we start soul searching, and we start looking at the audience and seeing who is it that actually may give us that. So I think that little bit of energy that you can get from one person is enough to actually drive us and not make us lose hope. So it's a good thing that you brought that one up.
Actually, it also kind of reminds me, just in terms of the idea of, again, connecting to inner tone, to the sound that comes from inside. You have to develop strength and resilience to be able to perform in adverse conditions. I mean, so I'm a piano player, which means that most often I'm not playing my instrument. In other words, my personal instrument. Often I could go to a venue, and if they have a piano, there's no guarantee as to what condition the piano is going to be in, whether the piano is going to be in tune, what the sound system or the miking of the piano is going to be. But at the end of the day, it's what I have in front of me, and I've got to make that instrument sing. It must sing like it's the most beautiful piano in the world. So where is that coming from? Well, that's not going to come from the instrument. That's going to come from me. I've got to make friends with that instrument. I've got to coax it and nurture it and create the sounds out of it. But again, just to connect to this idea of inner tone, that energy that comes from inside, that really is the most important, most fundamental thing to what we do. Okay, I want to ask you another question. Okay, did you feel sometimes a conflict between your inner tone and outer expectations of performing or presenting?
You know, as a person that has profession or a skill, we all have good days and bad days. You know, you'll have a very good day up until the time you actually get onto stage, and even 1 second before on, somebody could upset your mood so badly. You know, and the converse can happen. You can have the most rubbish day, you know, and then you walk on stage and you're still despondent from the activity that took place on that particular day. And then the moment you sit before your instrument and you look at the audience, you forget all the negativity that you had for the day, and your mood entirely changes. So the manner in which you manage the conflict in your mind is very important. You know, if you allow yourself to be upset by somebody just because you go on stage, you're gonna dampen your performance to a point. But fortunately, we have a receptive audience, and an appreciative audience. They can change. Conversely, you can, like you said, you like people, noise, not paying attention. That can spoil me or really good at point. So sometimes these conflicts between your tone and your outer expectations of performing, because we, even as artists, I think, and as much as an audience has an expectation of us, we also have an expectation of an audience, you know. And our lockdown audiences have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller to a point where we are now performing online for no physical audience that we can see. We're just relying on all the lights and hearts and all the comments that are coming up on your screen for you to be able to tap off. So this whole issue of COVID has actually changed the mindset. It has actually revolutionized the industry to a point where we are now have to get comfortable with the idea of having no audience in front of us, but still be expected to perform to the best of our, our ability. So we don't have a direct energy anymore. We have an indirect energy, and we have to constantly look at a TV screen to see what they are saying, you know, in order to know that there's somebody listening to us and enjoying us. The advantage, though, of something like that is you can physically see that somebody's enjoying it because they're typing something, they're sending all these hearts, and they're sharing your videos as you're performing and stuff like that, which is something you wouldn't normally get in a live audience. Because a live audience person will just sit there and, you know, he'll just give you a clap after your item or not, you know. So I think, yeah, sometimes that conflict between your inner tone and your expectation, it does exist for us as musicians.
Yeah, you know, it's. I mean, it's like you say, yeah, in this kind of COVID era, the whole ball game has changed, and I think, you know, that this idea of inner tone becomes maybe even more important because if there's no one to play for, well, who is the only person in the room when you are playing? Who is the only person in the room when you are practicing? Yeah. It's only you. So so ultimately the ears that you are playing for are your own, and the reason you are playing is more than just to reach an audience, to try to sell, you know, your latest record or whatever. It becomes about the journey of self. But, you know, I mean, as a professional musician, we often called upon to play for all kinds of all manner of events and functions and so on. And sometimes what we have to do is simply provide entertainment. If that is what I'm hired to do, and it's clear as to what my role and function is, then there's no problem. You know, I prepare the appropriate material, if there's good communication and all of these kinds of things, it's easy to do. If someone hires me to do what it is that I do, they're interested in my music, interested in me as an artist and so on, then that's also fine. If I'm having to play music, let's just say where it's kind of background music, where the music is not front and center, if that's clear, again, it's all fine. The thing for me as a musician, as an artist, is that I need to kind of prepare myself mentally, because when I get onto stage, there's a different way of basically expressing myself. And this is something that I say to my students as well, is that you must be able to change gears. If I'm playing background music, then I'm playing from here simply to there. I know what it is. The most important thing for that gig, I must just play soft. That's all I have to do, And if it's my show, then I'm going to put on a show, and there's going to be lots of energy, lots of expression, and all of this kind of stuff. So for me, it's like it still has to do with the energy coming from inside, but it's like, how do you project? And if everything is clear from the organizers and so on, then there's no problem.
That's awesome. The next question is basically a description of the life of Neil Gonsalves, because what is your goal, aspiration to achieve internally through your journey of music? I think, in my opinion of you, Neil, is that you've done it all, man. You set bars so high that there are very few in this country will ever be able to achieve. And it's remarkable, indeed, what your achievements have been in the industry, what it still is, and what's to come. We know that when we reach a level of performance and knowledge that you have, it can only get better. So if I'm being asked the question, what is my goal and aspiration to achieve internally through music, it's obviously I look around me and all senior musicians like yourself, and I look at all the senior musicians from around the world, both in and out of my genre. I try to draw the inspiration from them. One day in this lifetime, I'm able to achieve somewhere near where you guys are, in terms of what I do. So I'm always looking to learn new things, and basically, I would also like to share my inner journey with all those, because remember, in the learning of music, I think take every chance to learn something new. Every day, learn something new. But there's two lines that he said to me. One was, learn whatever you can, whenever you can, from whomever you can. Right? And the other one he said was, help whomever you can, whenever you can, however you can. And these two philosophies actually apply not only in music, but in life in general. So, that would be one of it's a very broad spectrum, but a broad spectrum goal for myself through music. You can tell us about yours, Neil.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Keeran, and I think you are too humble, and you're very generous with kind words. So thank you for all the compliments you're paying me. In terms of a journey, well, I don't think a journey in music or life really ever ends. And when I was a young musician with dreams of becoming a great musician, or or whatever ambitions I had, I had no idea that that the world would change so much in kind of such a short period of time. I mean, the audience for the kind of music that I make is much diminished. The way that people consume music, the music industry is completely different. And for any young person, thinking about becoming a full-time musician, that is like a completely different prospect from when I was a young musician.
Yeah.
So one has to be strong in purpose, in belief. But the thing that I figured out for myself is more important than music for me is people. People are the most important thing. Music is a wonderful way to connect people. And for me, in terms of kind of being a vessel, like some kind of conduit, well, then what I need to keep doing and to try to get better at is to stay open and become more open, more open to people, more open to ideas, because the more open I am, which means, the more I can let go of things, the more I can receive. And now I'm speaking from experience. After having done this for so many years, this is my experience, that if I give freely, I receive freely. So this is my journey, and this is something that I want to continue to do and try to be better at it. I'm saying better at it as a musician, as a teacher, as a human being. And fundamental to that again is this idea of journey and the idea of connecting to this inner tone, the sound that's basically guiding, all the way through.
Excellent. Krishti, I think it's back to you now.
What a beautiful journey on inner tone that was, Neilji and Keeranji, taking us through your memoirs of music. We've come to a very interesting part of the program where we'll have a jugalbandi, or a duet performance by Neilji and Keeranji. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Can we do one F sharp minor?
Is it loud enough?
Neil, can you just play something so I can hear you? Yeah, I can hear you. Mama gaga, mama dada, mama gaga, sa sa sa. Mama gaga, mama dada, mama gaga, sa sa sa. Sa gaga, sa ga, mama ga, ma dada, ma ga, sa sa. Tada, ma dada, ma dada, ma da, ma da, ma ga, sa. Da da ma ni ni da sa da ni sa da da ni sa. Sa ni da ni sa ga sa ni da. Sa da ni da sa da ni da sa da ni da sa sa. Sa ni da ma da ma ga sa sa. Sa mama ga ma ga sa ni ga sa. Gamadani-san, Gamadani-san, Madani-san, Dani-san, Nisa, san, Sadani, 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 Dani, 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 Madada, 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 Gamma, 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 Mama, Gamma, Dani, Sansa, Mama, Gamma, Dani, Sansa, Mama, Gamma, Dani, Sansa, Paga, Gongaru, Paga, Gongaru, Gongaru, Mira, Gongaru, Mira, Zar ka pyala rana ne beja, Zar ka pyala rana ne beja, Ivat mira sire, Pag ghungaru bandh Pag ghungaru bandh, Pag ghungaru bandh, Pag ghungaru bandh mira nachi re.
Wow, what a beautiful Jugalbandi indeed. Wow, Kiranji, I definitely felt like I was listening to a bit of Anup Chaluta there for a bit. And Neilji, what beautiful performance on piano. With that, we've come to the conclusion of episode 7 of Antartan. I'd like to introduce Mr. C.P.M. Chinu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this evening's a vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am so honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's 7th episode of the program Antartan, meaning the inner tone. This was a series of interaction between two artists. They were interacting about their experiences of synchronization of their inner tones. Allow me to thank our online artists that took part on today's program. The first one was Mr. Neil Gonsalves, the musician and the singer. He was having interaction with Mr. Keeran Eshwarlall, a musician and the singer. The interactions were very great. There were so many things that we learned about them. And it was a continuation of a friendship of 30 years that two friends were discussing today about their inner tones. To both of you, we like to say thank you very much. And also we enjoyed the duet that you rendered this evening. To Neil Gonsalves ji, Keeran Eshwarlall ji, thank you very much for having with us this evening. To Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Channa Prakash Yogi, Sristi Arinarayan, Sri Piyush Kandwal, thank you very much for taking part on today's program. To all our online viewers who took part on today's program, we'd like to say thank you for having time with us. You are kindly advised to visit our Facebook page so that you will be updated about all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. Once again, to Neil Gonsalves ji and Keeran Eshwarlall ji, thank you very much. To all of you, have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.